to another video. This is going to be our third one in our Colossians mini-series that we've got going on, and if you're new here, hello, my name is Emma. I'm the one that runs this YouTube channel, as you probably guessed, as long as the Instagram and the written blog for Tea and God. And yeah, welcome if you're new. Hope you guys enjoy it and stick around, and if you do enjoy the video, please feel free to subscribe after. But before I ramble on too much longer, let's dive right into our tea of the day, then our psalm of the day, and then into our study. So our tea of the day here is a nice chai latte, because my mom asked if I wanted coffee, and so I was like, yes please. So we've got a chai latte as our drink of choice today. And our psalm of the day is going to be Psalm 101, which is about walking with integrity, which is, you know, something we all should be doing, but I just wanted to highlight verses 2 through 4, which say, I will ponder the way that is blameless. Oh, when will you come to me? I will walk with integrity of heart within my house. I will not set before my eyes anything that is worthless. I hate the work of those who fall away. It shall not cling to me. A perverse heart shall be far from me. I will know nothing of evil. And I just want to highlight those three because I think it's important for us to remember that as Christians, we really need to walk with integrity. And I think I said this in the last video, but we really need to make sure that, you know, what we view and what we eat and what we fill ourselves with is good and blameless and, you know, gonna help us along our path and along our journey, and really focus our eyes on, you know, what's true, noble, and lovely, and not to fill ourselves with the ways of the world, because, you know, the world isn't that great. It kind of is full of some nasty stuff, and if we keep filling ourselves with that, there's, like, if you fill yourself with things that are of the world, how are you any different from the other people? I mean, yes, you're saved, but are you really saved if you're continuing to live in sin? You know what I mean? So, after that really uplifting psalm there, or a few verses from that psalm, I want to pick it back in Colossians chapter 3 today. So if you guys missed the past two videos, we've done our first two chapters of Colossians already. And, yeah, it's just, Colossians has been a really good book in my mind lately, so I encourage you guys to watch those if you hadn't, or read the whole book yourself. But continuing into chapter 3, verse 1, it says, If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. And I just want to pause there, because that's kind of why I chose Psalm 101 with that little portion today, is because, again, we need to seek things that are above. We need to seek things that are good and blameless, and things that are good and noble and lovely, and that are really going to nourish our walk with God instead of pulling us away from Him. And it says in verse 2, Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth, for you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in glory. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then also you'll appear with Him in glory. And again, I just think that it's really important, because our priority, Christians, really should be heaven. Because, you know, while the world is cool and whatever, it's going to pass away. We're going to die. We're not going to be here forever. And you can't take anything that you get here with you, you know? So really a priority should be heaven and on honoring God with our lives and on truly loving on other people, because if it's not, like, we're kind of wasting our time, you know? So continuing into verse 5, it says, Put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you, sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desires, and covetousness. I always struggle with that one, which is idolatry. On account of these, the wrath of God is coming. And I just kind of want to highlight that, because something that I feel like is really prominent in our modern culture is all the sexual immorality and, like, living together before marriage and, you know, just, like, casual sex and, like, casual dating and all this stuff. And, like, really, it's not biblical. I mean, a lot of Christians, I don't think, condone it, but, like, when you have two people that claim to be Christians living together before marriage, like, that's not, like, the Bible doesn't preach anything along those lines. It preaches the opposite of that. And I think that it's important to, again, remember that we need to put that type of stuff to death, because, you know, even the Bible says that, you know, and now, of course, now I'm going to forget, but, you know, it says that if you desire something in your heart, then it's like you've already done it. Or if you want to kill someone in your heart, it's like you've already done it. And so in the same way, like, anything that you desire that isn't yours, it's idolatry. I mean, if you're putting something above your faith, if you're putting something above Christ, like, you are kind of making an idol out of it, which isn't good. And, yeah, kind of, you are making an idol. out of it, and it isn't good, and it's something that, I feel like as humans, as fallen beings, we naturally do, but it's something that you really need to check yourself on. And I'm not saying that from a place of like, oh, I never do it, because I do. I'm human, we all are. But it's when you realize that it's something that you're doing that you need to really check in with yourself and see, okay, well, why am I doing this? What about this is making me value it above this? Why am I focused so much on this when it's not as important as this? Really check in with yourself and evaluate why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. So continuing into verse 7, it says, "In these you too once walked when you were living in them." "In these you too once walked when you were living in them. But now you must put them all away: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth." And I just want to pause there because, again, I think this is something really important that a lot of people put aside. If you are truly trying to grow in the faith and to walk in integrity, you can't be an angry person all the time. There's definitely righteous anger, which, is God's angry sometimes, but you shouldn't be a predominantly angry person. You should be loving, you should be caring, you should be forgiving of other people because God's forgiven you. Therefore, you kind of have to forgive when other people, screw up. And you shouldn't be full of wrath. You shouldn't be full of malice and slander and obscene talk. So you shouldn't be, talking about things that you really shouldn't be talking about. I think another thing that's so prevalent in our culture is trying to make, it's trying to make sex like a casual conversation versus something that isn't discussed in public. And that really bothers me, if I'm being completely honest, because sex isn't something casual, it is something intimate. And a lot of times people in our society are trying to make it this casual thing because, it's good, it's great and whatever, but it's not. I mean, it's good, obviously, God created it, but if you're doing it casually, if you are, just kind of giving yourself away, I mean, you're gonna have regrets at times, you're gonna feel broken, and it's not healthy. That's why God made it for marriage, is because it's something that's so intimate and vulnerable that then it can almost, I'm going to use vulnerable. It's a really vulnerable thing. And so because of that, that's why it was created for marriage, because you don't have to worry about the person, having you in that vulnerable state and taking advantage of you, because you are partnered, you are spouses, you are team members from that point on. And I feel like when our society is trying to take something that God created for good and twist it in such a way that it is now, it's really heartbreaking, because that's not the way God designed it. That's not the way that it was meant to happen, and when people talk about it openly or swear a ton or, whatever, it's just difficult, because it's you can't just talk the talk, you need to walk the walk, And I feel like that's something that, again, as Christianity in America, it's something that's been really relaxed, I feel like, is to just be a Christian on Sundays and then be like everybody else the rest of the week, which is something that really needs to change, I feel like. But anyways, continuing into verse 9, it says, "Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator." And again, this is something really important. It's putting off the old self. It is, instead of focusing so much on all the ways of the world, on focusing about money and instead of focusing on your finances and your career and your school and your house and your car and your clothing and your whatever, it's putting all that aside and realizing that it really doesn't matter. I mean, you could be driving cars, like a Porsche or Ferrari or whatever the fancy car is, or you could be driving a Honda Civic, but does it really affect you as a human being? Hopefully not. I hope that you aren't so tied to everything materialistic that you only feel like a good person if you have the best of the best, because that's a really sad life you live if that's what you have to be happy. I feel like that as the world has gone on and on, we just kind of, as Christians, have begun to take on, I feel like in American Christianity too, it's becoming kind of like a showy thing. Who can be the best Christian? Who can be the Christian that has the best of the best and stuff? And it drives me a little bit insane, because being a Christian isn't about so I've been in some churches where before offerings and stuff, they will be they'll have somebody come up and give a testimony about all these great things that God did for them after they started tithing and stuff. And that kind of drives me crazy because, like, I mean, obviously tithing is good and things, but you shouldn't be tithing just so that God can give you something better than what you gave him, because that's not what tithing is about. Tithing is about sacrificing and, like, giving enough that it kind of hurts a little bit, you know, not hurts a little bit, but, like, you know, hurts your finances a little bit because you trust that God's going to provide for you. It's not about, oh, well, I'll give you this much if you give me this much. You know, like, that's not what it's about. And so it kind of drives me crazy when people focus on that, because if that's the mindset you have, that's not the mindset you should have if you're sacrificing, if you're giving something to God, you know? Anyway, sorry. So continuing in verse 11, it says, Here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. And I think this is, again, really important, because I feel like, again, as Christians, we can be so quick to judge others, or to be like, oh, well, you used to do blah, 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 so therefore I'm a better Christian than you because I never did that. And, like, are we meant to be the judges? No. That's God's job, not our job. That's God's job. So, like, it drives me crazy when people forget that, and I think that it's so important when he says here, Christ is all and is in all. He's not just in you, he's in everybody around you that's a Christian, you know? And that's important, and when we forget that, we kind of start to lose sight of what's really important. Anyways, continuing into verse 12, it says, Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so also you must forgive. And above all these put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. And I want to pause there at the end of verse 15, because, first of all, I love the opening of verse 12. We are God's chosen ones. We're holy and beloved. And when you really process that, that's incredible. I mean, like, we're such screwed up people. Like, I mean, even if you're a good person, like, you've done some screwed up things. I know you have. We all have. And thinking about that, the fact that God still chose us, that he calls us holy and beloved, that's insane. That's awesome. And, like, mind-boggling to me. And I also just love that, as usual, everything in the Bible, we need to love on other people. That's our job. We have to love others. And I just love the way that verses 12 through 15 say how we have to love others, because I feel like it can be sometimes difficult to think, well, okay, like, how can I love somebody today, you know? And that's kind of, you know, some suggestions for what to do to make people feel loved, to make people around you feel more chosen and beloved and, you know, respected and whatever. And I also just love verse 14, because above all these put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony, because if you do things for someone else but you don't show love, like, it's kind of worthless. I mean, you can be all these great things, but if you don't have love, it doesn't mean anything, you know? And I also think verse 15 is important, because we need to let the peace of Christ rule in our hearts. We can't just try and be these good people and then have a tumultuous life otherwise, you know? Like, we need to really be filling ourselves with Christ every day and have his peace live in us, you know? And be thankful. Because if you can't be grateful and thankful and, you know, realize that what you have is a gift, it's really hard to be a happy person, I feel like. But continuing into verse 16, it says, Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. And I think that when it opens, it's important to focus on the richly. You don't want to just let the word of Christ dwell in you a little bit. You want to let it dwell in you richly. And I, again, just think it's important that when we are helping each other out and teaching and admonishing each other, we do so with wisdom. We do so, and we do it nicely. We do it kindly. We don't, you know, pick on each other or judge each other or any of that. And again, verse 17 is important, because it's you know, realizing that what you're doing is a direct reflection of God. Once you become a Christian, everything that you do reflects to other people what God is like. So whether or not the person you're helping is a Christian or a non-Christian, what you do when you say that you're a Christian directly reflects on God. He is I guess, your employer, you could say. So whatever you do as an employee reflects on him. It reflects what he's showing you to do, what he is teaching you. And so if you say that you're a Christian, yet you're doing all these horrible things to people, that's going to look really bad on God, you know? So continuing into verse 18, it says, "Wives, submit to your husbands as is fitting for the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord." And I want to pause there because I just like this a lot, because I feel like the most important things in relationships with other people, not just like spouses and then children and parent relationships, is submitting, loving, and obeying. So, you know, I just think it's just so important. And yeah, I don't know, I just think it's really good. And continuing into verse 21, it says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged. Bondservants, obey in everything those who are your earthly masters, not by way of eye service as people pleasers, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord, not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. For the wrongdoer will be paid back for the wrong he has done, and there is no partiality." And I'm just going to read verse 1 of chapter 4 because it's the end of this thought. It says, "Masters, treat your bondservants justly and fairly, knowing that you also have a master in heaven." And I think that's really important to, again, remember that when you're serving others, you need to do so sincerely. Because if you are only helping someone because it will help you out in some way, that's not really loving them. That's loving yourself and being self-serving. And that's not what we're called to do as Christians. That's not what, that's not going to help the other person as much if you're only helping them so that they can do something for you. That's like tithing, where you give this much because you're like, oh, well, God will give me this much if I give this much, which isn't how it works. And I also just think that it's important to remember that if you are in a position of power over someone else, or if you are, position of power, I mean, like, if you're a teacher or a boss at a company or anything like that, you need to treat those below you justly and fairly, because there is nothing worse as an employee or as a student than to have a teacher or a, English boss treat you unjustly or unfairly just because they have more power than you, because then it's like, I'm a human too, I have feelings, I have a family, I have responsibilities. And so when you recognize that in other people, that's just going to make it so much easier to love other people, is recognizing that, they're also a human being with their own life and their own life story and everything. And we have one more chapter, which will probably be next week, but it could be late this week. We'll have to see. I hope you guys enjoyed that, though. I hope you guys have been enjoying this little mini-series on Colossians. And I also just want to say that, I know that the past few videos I've been letting my own opinion come out a little bit more. And not necessarily my own opinion, but, kind of being a little bit more harsh with things, which, I kind of feel... Not harsh, more blunt. Blunt is the word I'm looking for. And I kind of feel bad about that. And, there's a part of me that wants to apologize for that, but at the same time, I'm tired of people pleasing. I'm tired of just being nice and not saying what is actually being said, and tired of kind of pretending like things are okay when they're not, because I have to do that. Or I don't have to. I feel like I have to do that all the time, and it's just not what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, this is kind of a tangent. So if you're sticking around, I'm sorry. But, I just get tired of feeling like I can't say what is actually being said, or what I actually believe in, or, stuff like that. And I don't feel like that's fair to me or the people around me, because I feel like being inauthentic is the worst thing that you can be as a person, because we were all created so differently. And if you are faking to be something that you're not to make somebody else happy, it's not fair to you. It's not fair to them. It's just not a fun time for anyone. And I'm learning as time goes on, that's okay to disagree with people. It's okay to say something that might not be taken well, I guess, if you're saying something that people might disagree with, even if it's true, And I'm trying to learn to be okay with that. So this is something that I'm trying to learn. So hopefully if you guys are sticking around, you can learn how to do that too. But yeah, so there's part of me that wants to apologize for being blunt and for saying what's actually on my mind, but there's another part that is like, this is something that I am allowed to think, that I am allowed to feel, that if the Bible says it, that like I can say it without being ashamed, you know? And yeah, so be prepared for that, I guess. But I hope that just like, I don't know, I am trying to learn to be okay with having an opinion and a thought process that might make other people uncomfortable. That's the word, that might make people uncomfortable. And I feel like as a Christian in today's world, that is something that is very, very, very common. And I just hope that having this channel is kind of a good practice for me to be able to verbalize what my actual thoughts are and feel safe doing so, because I struggle with that, with feeling confident enough to actually say things. And I hope that through my verbal processing of figuring these things out for myself, it also kind of encourages you guys to say what you actually believe in and what you actually think, and to have the courage to stick up for what is right in a world that likes to glorify things that are wrong. But yeah, sorry, that was a really tangential outro. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please feel free to leave a like. If you guys want any more content like this, you know, feel free to let me know either by comment or by direct message on Instagram. And I just want to encourage you guys, because I feel like I feel like it's really difficult to find community in churches now, because it's not like back in the day where you like everybody at church knew everybody and like everybody actually cared about people. It kind of feels fake at a lot of churches. That might sound mean, but like it's kind of true. And so I just hope that through developing this community, we can all feel more close and like feel like we actually have a community of believers that we can rely on. And yeah, hopefully I'm not the only person that feels this way. Otherwise, it's just a little awkward. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. And, you know, as usual, if you know somebody that you think could benefit, please feel free to share this with them. And I will see you guys either later this week or next week. But y'all know by now it's probably going to be next week. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of whatever day of the week this is. Probably Wednesday, because again, it's probably going to be next week. But yes, I will see you guys in the next one. And thank you guys so much for watching. And as usual, if you leave here knowing nothing else, I hope you know how loved and precious and cherished you are to God that created you. All right, bye guys.